For a year, on and off, I've been thinking about Dragon Age the Veilguard. More specifically, I've been thinking about my Dragon Age the Veilguard review, the 5-star review I wrote for Eurogamer. It plagues me, because, to be blunt, I'm not happy with how it sits. I don't think the Veilguard is a 5-star game, and definitely don't think it's BioWare's best game. To have suggested such a thing has haunted me for 12 months, particularly as new information about Veilguard's troubled development has arisen, and we've learned how a Mass Effect team commandeered the project in order to rescue it, overriding the Dragon Age team at its core. Nevertheless, the project was rescued, and 3 attempts later, including 1 live service near miss, BioWare managed to turn out a single-player role-playing game, which, in itself, is a remarkable thing. And I enjoyed it an awful lot. I'm not here to discredit my review entirely. Nor am I here to say we're altering our original review, because that's not something we do. Our reviews are an encapsulation of how we felt about something at a specific moment in time. But is Veilguard the legacy to remember the troubled Dragon Age series by? That I'm not so sure about. To order my thoughts, I spoke with fellow Eurogamer editor Alex Donaldson, who reviewed Veilguard for VG247. The thing is, at the preview event, I remember the overriding feeling I had that Veilguard felt like Mass Effect 2, and much more streamlined and action-focused than the game it was following, in this case, Dragon Age Inquisition. But to me, that wasn't a bad thing. How could being like Mass Effect 2 be a bad thing? I'd found Inquisition a bit of a slog to play, and the general consensus seems to be that Mass Effect 2 is BioWare's best game. The style seemed to fit. However, Alex had a far different impression of Veilguard from the same preview event.
I thought you could just tell that it had been stitched together from what was basically a handful of disparate projects. All of those projects were ultimately Dragon Age 4 in some form or another. There were stages where it was a traditional RPG, stages where it was live service, and late in the game, this incredible creative team had to come in and pull something together from those pieces in quite a short amount of time. Based on what I know of this game's development, I think it's a miracle that it shipped at all, and the people who shipped it deserve bloody medals. Veilguard, to me, is sort of less than the sum of its parts, to deploy a cloying cliche. At the same time though, my respect for the people who made it was great to begin with, and has only rocketed as I've learned more about how it was made.
We know more now about the troubled development of Veilguard than we did back then, but regardless of that extra context, I was impressed. Veilguard's combat had pace and heft, the traversal felt lively and engaging, and the art style really clicked with me. What concerned me back then was breadth. How broad Veilguard would be and how much of an RPG it would be. I'm one of those people who thinks Mass Effect 2 wasn't as RPG as Mass Effect 1, so I was determined to keep a close eye on it in the review. And what I saw there gave me enough reassurance that Veilguard was an RPG. But looking back on it now, that's a thought that's changed. The game does give you big decisions to make, such as saving Treviso or Minrathous, and there are decisions and actions that result in companions living or dying. But, in hindsight, these feel more like railroaded, scripted things. And then when it comes to companions, Harding in particular I found cloyingly sweet, and Ballara and Nave, the earlier characters, but it did improve as other characters came along. Still, there wasn't everyone's a winner kind of mentality to the crew and to the game, and any narrative or personal obstacles seemed to be overcome fairly easily. There wasn't much friction. There was no inter-party conflict either, no antagonistic pals, no Blackwall, no Iron Bull or Cole, and Alex thought something very similar.
I wrote a piece for VG247 where the thesis was that everybody in the Veilguard is lovely, and I hated it. Dragon Age has always been loved for its characters and sweet relationships, but to me it felt like it almost became too cosy.
Perhaps it's this coziness and lack of friction that resulted in many of the characters slipping from my memory a year later. It's telling which characters have stuck in mind. Emmerich, the Vincent Price necromancer, certainly, maybe Spanish heartthrob Lucanus, but the others? I don't know. I was a fan of Tarsh at the time, but haven't thought about them since. They also symbolise some of the on-the-nose writing in the game, which I think characterised a game that didn't want to let things build slowly, so it just dulled everything out, themes and secrets like rapidly cooling porridge. Some of the mega revelations that came in Veilguard arrived so abruptly that they gave me whiplash. A bigger topic I've been thinking about is how much opinion varies depending upon personal headspace at the time. Veilguard provided me with a dose of hope that I needed last year. It lifted me up, and I'm sure there were many other people like me who needed the same. Similarly, those rapid-fire narrative revelations, I wolfed them down. I dug deep into the Dragon Age lore before playing the game, so I was primed and hungry for lore drops come the review. I remember actually squealing at one point when something big was revealed, and at the time, I thought this was a strength. I realise now, in retrospect, what I liked about Veilguard was created by Inquisition. Without that game, you just don't have Veilguard, really. Inquisition did all the devising and the hairy narrative lifting. Veilguard really just reaped the rewards. Inquisition was the game that planned the feast. Alex made a point about feeling the abandoned live service Dragon Age idea in Veilguard. You absolutely can, particularly in the factions' hub areas and their reputation rewards. Some of the scenery there was magnificent though, testament, perhaps, to how long the game had been in development one way or another. The game's art book documents a lot of this. I think more art was created for the Dragon Age 4 project that would eventually become Veilguard than for the entire 3 earlier Dragon Age games combined. Game director Corinne Bush even told me that there was a lot we'd recognise in Veilguard from the live service days. There will never be another Dragon Age project like this, which spends 10 years in development. Maybe there will never be another Dragon Age game at all. And yet, given where the game once was, I marvel that a decent single-player RPG came out of it at all. So, would I give it a different score now, a year later? I would. I think I'd probably land on 4 stars, although my hedging there is telling. But to sit and reappraise in the cold light of a year's worth of reflection is also to overlook the passion I felt for the game when I reviewed it. I loved it. At the time, I was certain of that. It gave me emotional highs and lows and some incredible set pieces. And I don't want to discredit the excitement I felt by tutting at my past self now, because to feel excited by a game is the best magic they can offer. I remember during the review considering giving it 5 stars if the game could rise again in its finale, which it did, and spectacularly so. But that ending wasn't really Veilguard's idea. It was Mass Effect 2's, and within the realisation lies so much of how I feel about Veilguard. It was deliberately made, as we now know, to feel like Mass Effect 2 because everyone likes Mass Effect 2, whereas other Dragon Age projects had carefully laid their own original and ambitious ideas. By the time this one became Veilguard, it had one primary concern: completion. Remarkably, it wasn't a mess. But Veilguard's rush to the finish line development raises concerns about EA's other RPG behemoth, Mass Effect.
There's a greater problem, which is the one that Mass Effect now faces, and that's the way that EA is set up means that it's almost the antithesis of the sort of environment that can foster games like Dragon Age. EA is geared towards making iterative sports games and multinational development of behemoths like Battlefield. You're never going to see them put that Battlefield level investment into a single player RPG though. It's the same reason why we're unlikely to see them revisit something like Command & Conquer. Honestly, I don't have an enormous amount of hope for anything owned by EA that isn't sports or Battlefield. Now, Mass Effect could power through to a last chance saloon release for this sort of game from EA, and then maybe it will do the sort of numbers required to make EA change its thinking. Or maybe, if EA takes on a mountain of debt, these less useful IPs and studios could end up for sale.
Veilguard did a lot of things well, but they were all things other BioWare games had done before. This was a design by BioWare numbers job, really, or a salvage by BioWare numbers job. Veilguard remains one of the most entertaining Dragon Age experiences I've had, and, as an action-packed epilogue to Inquisition, it works marvellously. But, a year later, I can say that Veilguard is not the game to hang Dragon Age's legacy on. So there you go, those are Eurogamer's reflected thoughts on Dragon Age the Veilguard. What do you think about the game? Let me know in the comments below, and let's keep it respectful, please. If you liked this video, then please do like it and subscribe to Eurogamer for more videos about video games almost every single day. And now I am going to go and continue to play my heavily modded Stardew file, so I'll see you folks next time.